The bell above the bakery door jangled, a sharp, lonely sound that sliced through the silence of the night. It was late, too late for anyone to be out on the cobblestone streets of Canterbury, where the lamps hummed faintly and the fog rolled like whispers between the alleyways. I was scrubbing the counter again, though it was already spotless. My hands were raw, my heart heavier still. The numbers hadn't lied. Haven's Hearth, my bakery, was about to die. And I was scrubbing it clean for its funeral. The front door creaked open. A gust of cold air and the faint smell of rain followed the frail silhouette of an old man. His tweed coat clung to his shoulders, damp and frayed, his hair silver like frost. His eyes, pale blue, trembling, found me as if I were salvation itself. "Please," he gasped, clutching the display counter. "Tell me you're still open. I've made a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake." For a moment, I forgot to breathe. There was something in his voice that shattered the fragile calm inside me. My bakery was collapsing, my dreams were crumbling, and yet this stranger's desperation felt like a mirror held up to my own. I'd spent months pretending I could fix everything with a smile and a whisk. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "What kind of mistake?" I asked quietly. His name was Noah Whitmore, and his story spilled out in trembling fragments. His wife, Eleanor, was turning 80 the next morning. 53 years of marriage, he said, and he'd forgotten. "She's been ill. You see, pneumonia," he whispered. "I've been so focused on her breathing that I forgot her birthday. She deserves a parade, and I don't even have a cupcake." His words hung in the air, raw and trembling. I looked around the empty bakery, the dark ovens, the flour-dusted shelves, the empty case that reflected my tired face. I had almost nothing left. I'd used up my final bag of sugar yesterday trying to create some new magic that never sold. The letter from the bank still sat open on my desk in the back room, the ink bleeding like a wound. The smart thing, the sane thing, would have been to tell him no. But his shaking hands reminded me of my grandmother's. The way she used to bake late into the night for neighbors, never turning anyone away. She'd once told me, "Amelia, baking is love disguised as labor. When you stop giving, it's no longer worth doing." So I swallowed my fear. "What kind of cake does she love?" I asked. For the first time, Noah smiled. "Red velvet," he whispered. 3 layers, cream cheese frosting, and a sugar rose on top. She's always loved roses. My stomach twisted. That cake wasn't a simple favor. It was a test of endurance. I didn't even have enough cocoa or cream cheese. But something in his eyes, hope, guilt, devotion, held me still. I nodded. "Come back tomorrow morning. It'll be ready." He tried to hand me a stack of cash, but I pushed it back. "Pay me when you pick it up." He thanked me, voice breaking, and disappeared into the mist. The bell rang one last time as the door shut. Then silence. I leaned against the counter, my body trembling, and realized what I'd just done. I'd promised a miracle in a dying shop with empty shelves. But I couldn't turn back. // I tied on my apron, pulled out my grandmother's old recipe book, its pages soft from years of sugar and tears. The handwriting was hers, elegant, looping, full of patience. I flipped to the red velvet recipe and whispered, "Help me, Gran." Then I began. Flour floated like fog in the dim light. The hum of my ancient mixer became a heartbeat in the stillness. Every crack of an egg sounded like thunder in that lonely room. My arms ached, my mind screamed that this was pointless, but I kept going. I found the last of the good cocoa, the precious vanilla beans I'd hidden away, the expensive cream cheese tucked behind cheaper substitutes. This cake would cost me more than I'd earned in weeks, but I didn't care. As I mixed, I remembered Indiana fields from my childhood, the smell of cinnamon and warm bread, my grandmother humming old songs. Bake with your heart, she'd say, tapping my chest. That's where the magic lives. Somewhere between the second and third layer, I started crying. Silent tears, hot and constant. They weren't just for the bakery. They were for every time someone told me I couldn't do this. I could still hear my father's voice echoing through memory, stern, final. Dreamers starve, Amelia. Reality feeds you. I laughed through the tears, because here I was, starving maybe, but alive, my hands covered in flour and faith. Then let me starve doing what I love, I whispered, the words breaking like sugar crystals on my tongue. The hardest part came last, the sugar rose. I hadn't made one in years. Spun sugar is alive, fickle, cruel. One wrong breath and it collapses. The first melted into syrup. The second shattered in my hands. My fingers burned, my shoulders ached, but I refused to give in. I whispered again, bake with your heart, and shaped the third rose petal by petal until it stood, fragile and luminous, like glass kissed by morning light. Dawn crept in through the fogged windows. The cake sat before me, 3 perfect layers, white frosting gleaming like snow, the sugar rose crowning it like hope reborn. My apron was stained red, my hands trembling. I sank into a chair, staring at the masterpiece that might be my farewell. When Noah returned, the sun had barely risen. His eyes were red, his voice small. When I opened the box, he froze. "It's beautiful," he whispered. His hand found mine, cold and trembling. "You've saved me." And just like that, he was gone again, the cake held against his chest like a treasure. I stood there in the stillness, the silence returning as soft as flour settling. I told myself that would be my last cake. My final act before Haven's hearth faded quietly from memory. But life had other plans. // Miles away, in a sunlit garden in Bath, the Whitmore family gathered around a table dressed in white lace and pastel roses. Eleanor Whitmore smiled faintly from her chair, frail but radiant. Beside her sat her granddaughter, Lila Whitmore, a food critic so feared in the London scene that a single post from her could close a restaurant overnight. She was known for her wit, her sharpness, her impossible standards. That morning, she'd come out of duty, not joy. Her grandfather had forgotten the party, and she was furious. Then Noah arrived, breathless, flushed, carrying my cake like it was holy. When he opened the box, the garden fell silent. Lila stared. The cake wasn't just beautiful, it was haunting. The red velvet gleamed, the frosting soft as porcelain, and the sugar rose seemed to hold the light itself. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. Noah's voice cracked as he told them the story of the stranger who stayed up all night to save his mistake. When Lila tasted it, her world stopped. The sweetness was balanced, the texture melting, but more than that, it felt human. It tasted like care, like memory, like love. She excused herself, tears prickling her eyes, and wrote. Her fingers flew across her phone, every word spilling with awe. "Haven's Hearth," she typed, "isn't a bakery. It's a miracle." That night, while I slept in the bakery chair, my phone began to buzz. Once. Twice. Then endlessly. I woke to hundreds of notifications, names I didn't know, comments I couldn't keep up with. A friend texted me a link. And there it was, Lila's post, glowing like a beacon across the UK's food blogs. "The sweetest thing I've ever tasted isn't sugar, it's sincerity." A tiny bakery in Canterbury, run by a woman who stayed up all night to right a stranger's wrong, has reminded me what food is meant to be, love made tangible. By morning, the street outside Haven's Hearth was unrecognizable. A queue curved around the block, umbrellas and laughter filling the air. I unlocked the door trembling, and within minutes every pastry was gone. People wanted red velvet. They wanted the miracle. And I baked until my arms ached again, this time with joy. That afternoon, the bell chimed, and there stood Lila. Her dark hair was swept back, her expression softened by something I hadn't seen in anyone's face for months: respect. "Looks like you're in trouble," she said with a smirk, nodding at the chaos behind me. I laughed. "The good kind, I hope." She leaned against the counter. "You saved my grandfather's heart. I want to help you save this place." Lila wasn't there to buy cake. She was there to offer partnership. She'd been searching for something real, something worth investing her heart in. "You bake," she said, "and I'll handle the business, the marketing, the growth. But the soul, the kindness, stays yours." I didn't hesitate. We shook hands, sealing a bond that felt bigger than business. Months blurred into a whirlwind of flower and light. Haven's Hearth was reborn, brighter, warmer, busier. We expanded the kitchen, hired young bakers, added tables by the window where people could watch the rain fall on Canterbury streets. I'd wake before dawn, humming my grandmother's songs again, and sometimes I'd glance up and find Lila watching from the doorway, smiling quietly. A year later, we closed the bakery for one night, a private celebration. It was Eleanor Whitmore's 81st birthday. The same garden, the same lace, but this time laughter filled the air before the cake even arrived. I carried it out myself, a red velvet masterpiece, crowned once again with a sugar rose. Noah's hands shook as he reached for mine. "You saved her," he whispered. "And in a way, you saved me too." I looked around at the faces, the Whitmores, my staff, the customers who'd become friends. Lila stood beside me, her eyes glistening, her voice soft. "You did it, Amelia. You gave Canterbury back its heart." And in that moment, I realized she was right. Because Haven's Hearth was never just flour, sugar, and light. It was resilience. It was love surviving the storm. It was a promise, made at midnight and baked into dawn, that kindness still mattered. /////. When I locked up that night, the bell above the door chimed softly, like an echo of the first time I'd met Noah. I paused, fingers resting on the key. Outside, the fog rolled gentle over the streetlights, wrapping the city in quiet gold. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Gran." Some dreams die. Others transform. Mine rose again from the ashes, dusted with sugar and grace. And if you ever find yourself walking through Canterbury on a rainy evening, follow the smell of red velvet and warm vanilla. You'll find us there, Haven's Hearth, where miracles still rise in the oven. And as I turned off the lights, I smiled to myself, whispering into the quiet air, I baked my way home. ////. If my story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories about second chances, kindness, and the quiet miracles that still exist in this beautiful, fragile world.